And triple header coming to a close already. It seems insane that after this weekend, we're going to already be more than a fifth of the way through the season, right? 5 out of 24 races completed. But that's where we are, and it seems insane, and I'm pretty scared, but also very excited for what the rest of the season may hold. It feels like just last week we were in Bahrain for testing, and now all of a sudden, like, the season is ending. it's crazy, absolutely crazy. But thank you guys all for joining me. Oh, why is this not working? There we go. I clicked the wrong button, I think. Now we should definitely be live. There we go, there we go, there we go. Hello, Sarah. How's it going? Beautiful. Hello, Timothy. Hello, A-Guy1013. How are we all doing? I was just saying, it seems insane that we are over a fifth of the way through the season, right? 5 races down. And still so many questions yet to be answered. Like there's so many things that we have yet to see, and so many things that we haven't quite got to like fully understand yet in this season. But so quickly these races are flying by, especially because of this triple header. I feel like that's kind of made the season accelerate into life. Can you get a shout out? Of course you can. Prime Skeledits. Prime Skeledits. Gonna go for that. Hello, Josh. How's it going? Hello, Samet. Hello. Inez as well. The quali is at 6 UK time. That is correct. It is at 6 o'clock. And I feel like this is one of the tightest qualifyings that we're going to have throughout the season, honestly. Like, as the season has progressed, it's felt more and more like we should know where everyone is going to slot in, but we don't know where everyone is going to slot in. It's all a little bit weird. I feel like my white balance is really off. Hang on a minute. Let me shuffle this. I feel like I've moved things around inside of this room over the last few days, and my white balance looks mental. Where are we? I just look very blue. Very blue. Is that better? Worse? I'll adjust it as we go. We'll see what happens. Can I request a reschedule for about 7 or 8 hours later? 2 a.m. It's commitment, though. You're committed. And therefore, you got to respect it. You know what I mean? Got to respect the commitment to the cause. You got to be in it to win it. And actually, I don't know. I quite like the later races from my perspective. Well, I don't know. It feels weird because I've had like the whole day to prepare and change things around and see what I'm sort of thinking about various bits and pieces. But also at the same time, I don't want to go too deep. I don't want to spend the whole day doing work to then be a little bit tired by the time it comes to this. It's all a little bit strange, isn't it? Better than the 2 a.m. starts. That is certainly the case. Like getting up for China and getting up for Japan, absolutely never again. Like, goodness gracious me. It was a struggle. Let's say that. Let's say a struggle without sort of putting too much pressure on myself. Evening race is your favorite. See, Josh is with me. I quite like an evening race, but then I can appreciate an afternoony race as well. It's the early mornings. The early mornings are not the one. But shall we have a little chat about what's going on in the Formula One world? And in fact, I really, really, really need to get your thoughts and feelings on a couple of things. Obviously, if you haven't seen the predictions video this week, it's probably because it was very, very late. Apologies for that again. Was just so busy doing various bits and pieces, trying to sort out my life, and then was trying to edit the video, realized that the edit was never going to get done in time. So eventually just did it as a live stream. You can still check out that live stream. It's still on the channel. came out yesterday just before free practice 1. But to jump to the conclusion, this was what you guys predicted was going to be the case in Saudi Arabia this weekend. You're backing Oscar Piastri to do the business. And that would, of course, put him top of the driver standings. If he does manage to do it, it's not looking good for Lando Norris right now. And I don't want to be that guy who's jumping too quickly to conclusions. Like I kind of said in my video earlier on in the week, there's still so much of the season left to play out, but the momentum does feel like it's shifting. The momentum feels like it's going from one side of the garage to the other. And Oscar Piastri taking the lead in the championship is just another step in the right direction for him, isn't it? It's just another step in the, well, this is what we should now be expecting from Oscar Piastri. This is what we should now be expecting from the title challenge. And who kind of takes that lead, especially, I think, into the summer break. I know we're still a little bit off that. We're sort of halfway to the summer break. Not even, actually, isn't it? It's 14 races into the season. So about a third of the way to the summer break. But whoever gets to the summer break leading the championship, especially if Verstappen, Russell, those kind of guys do start to close the gap, I just think McLaren do need to make a decision. And I think that will be what points it. It will just be whoever is leading the championship by that point will get the slightly beneficial treatment. Not saying that championship's done and dusted by then. Not saying that Piastri's leading the championship and it can't come back into Norris's favor or vice versa after the summer break. But I just feel like that there will be a turning point. There'll be a time in the season, summer break seems about right, where they'll have to assess and readjust and decide what they're doing for the rest of the year. Then you said Ollie Behrman being the surprise. Of course, got to race here last year. If you're looking at one of the rookies to do well, probably the rookie that scored points, albeit in a Ferrari, but scored points nonetheless in Saudi Arabia last year. And then is coming into this season and has started to hit the ground running. There was very tough opening weekend in Australia, the crash in free practice 1, missing free practice 2, not being able to sort of take part in Australia in the way that he would have wanted to. But since then, started to step in the right directions, get those points on the board. An insane drive last time around in Bahrain from 20th to 10th. And I know Bahrain is a good circuit for that kind of thing. You can move forwards, and the strategy did play into his favor, but still had to go out there and do it, still went out there and did it. And Ollie Behrman definitely being a surprise package for the year so far. Shouldn't be a surprise, performed well last year as a rookie. That is very true. That is very, very true. Maybe isn't so much of a surprise, but more so, I think, just people expecting him to do something a little bit special here. You know, get the Haas to a couple of places higher than maybe where it should actually have finished. Best team, McLaren just seems to be running home with the best team voting at the moment. Does seem fairly obvious at this point of the season which team is going to come out and score the most points in the Constructors' Championship every weekend. The other teams that people thought would do well were kind of your Haas's. Got a few votes. Outside of that, it was mainly the top 4 teams, to be honest with you. Lance Stroll does usually hit the wall here. So I can understand why Lance Stroll has been thrown in the mix. He has hit the wall in Saudi Arabia a good few times. Huge crash. Was it last year or the year before? I think it was last year. Lance Stroll, huge crash around the final couple of corners. And then flop team, Stakes Sauber, just seems to be where they are right now. Hot take Mercedes as the flop team. Ouch, ouch, ouch. Where do I think Alonso will be? Where do you think Alonso to be? Where did he... In free practice 3, it wasn't great, was it? I'd be happy if Alonso got through to Q2. I think Q2 is where we're looking at for the Aston Martins, to be honest. Getting out of Q1, getting through to Q2, I don't think Q3 is on the cards. Just because you've got those top 4 teams, so I'm locking those kind of 8 positions out unless something goes really wrong. And then, on the flip side of that, if you ask me to pick 2 drivers from the midfield pack, Fernando Alonso would not be one of them. You know, I'm looking at Alex Albon's had a good weekend so far. Carlos Sainz, back-to-back P5s in free practice 1 and free practice 2, had a good weekend so far. The Williamses look strong. The RBs have looked really good at the start of the season compared to the Aston Martins. The Hasses have looked really good at the start of the season. Pierre Gasly seems to be finding some momentum. You know, I feel like there's 5 or 6 drivers that I'd probably pick before I'd pick Fernando Alonso to slot into those Q3 spaces. Never know, though. Could be completely wrong. And Fernando Alonso could put in one of the performances of his life and jump up into the point scoring places out of nowhere. It would be very Fernando Alonso to do so, wouldn't it? It would be just classic Fernando Alonso to prove everybody wrong fairly swiftly. But I think that's where we're kind of sitting at with Fernando Alonso at the moment. Really want a Monaco Stroll career mode. Wow. Fernando for the win. Have you got a Fernando Alonso? I was talking to Dan about this. I think, was it you that's also got a Fernando Alonso cardboard cutout? Possibly. I can't remember who he said now. There was a few people that have seen Dan's cardboard cutout of Fernando Alonso and now got their own cutout of Fernando Alonso, which I think's a strange habit that Dan is pushing on all of his fans. Now, I do have a question to ask, and this has been something that I've been talking about and thinking about and can't settle on for weeks now. I think I put out a community post maybe 4-5 weeks. Nah, it can't have been that long ago. 3-4 weeks ago, something along those lines, as to what happens if Max Verstappen leaves Red Bull. And the kind of talk around Max Verstappen leaving Red Bull ebbs and flows, doesn't it? It comes and it goes as the seasons progress. Last year, it was all about him moving to Mercedes. This year, it seems more likely that he'll move to Aston Martin. There's been a lot of talk about that. Fernando Alonso was actually talking about that. And Fernando Alonso was saying he is only willing or only wants to race for Aston Martin for so long. He knows that he's got an expiry date, but Fernando Alonso also knows that his contract goes beyond that and he'll stay with the team beyond the end of the season anyway. So we know that Fernando Alonso is around for the long run, even if he's not a racer at Aston Martin. So maybe he would be willing to, you know, shuffle aside and allow Max Verstappen to go in there. But the thing that I have been really struggling with, and the thing that I can't quite decide on, and I'm thinking about doing a video on this, which is why I threw it out on the community tab when I did. What happens to Red Bull post Max Verstappen? Like, who goes into that seat? Who goes in to replace Max Verstappen? And people could argue, well, Yuki Tsunoda's already there, but I don't mean that. I don't mean, you know, who do they bring in as the number one? Maybe Yuki Tsunoda does become the number one, but I don't know if they'd want that to happen. And then you look at the fact that we've got Isaac Hadjar. Would they trust Isaac Hadjar to go straight into the top team? Would they trust Liam Lawson to go back into the top team? I just don't know. I don't think so. And I just have no idea how Red Bull would sort out their driver situation if Max Verstappen does decide to leave. Like, I think that's the most difficult question to answer, and an impossible question to answer if you're Red Bull. Because I was thinking, well, maybe they'd be able to allure one of the McLaren drivers. You know, maybe the McLaren drivers get to a point where they've had enough of there not being a clear team number one, and either Norris or Piastri could go to Red Bull and just be like, right, I'm going to be the number one there. And I think Red Bull would be willing to say, Lando, come across, you'll be our number one. You don't need to worry about, you know, the second driver anymore. You don't need to worry about Oscar being on a similar level to you in the same car, etc., etc., or vice versa. Oscar, you don't need to worry about Lando being the number one, etc. Come over to us. We'll sort you out. I could see that being the case. I could certainly see one of the McLarens go in there. But then if the Red Bull is so bad and it doesn't quite look like it's going to be great moving into the next regulation cycle either. Even though Red Bull are a big team now, do you leave the clearly fastest car at the moment to go to Red Bull? Probably not, even with the regulation change. Then it's like, oh, okay, if Max Verstappen ends up at Mercedes, does George Russell go to Red Bull? But I can't see that either. If I'm honest with you, I can't see George Russell going to Red Bull. I don't think he suits the team. I don't think he'd fit in there well. And I don't think the Red Bull team would want a driver like George Russell. That is as quick as he is. I just don't think that works. And I also was then looking at the rest of the grid and I was like, maybe they go for like Carlos Sainz from Williams or Alex Albon from Williams. I have no idea. I've hit that brick wall every time I've tried to sort of think about who would go in to replace Max Verstappen. I've just hit a wall of, I don't think anyone would either want to go there or anyone would, or Red Bull would want anyone in particular to go there. It's Kelly, I agree. There's like no clear option. And it doesn't quite make sense in my head wherever I put the drivers and whoever I bring in to replace Max Verstappen. My head keeps going back to that McLaren argument, though. Just maybe they're able to allure one of the McLaren drivers. And then, yeah, you've got the Lindblad thing. I think the problem with the Lindblad argument, and I think a few people have put it forward, the reason that Mercedes could gamble on Kimi Antonelli is you knew, or they knew, George Russell would be able to score more than enough points to do well enough for the team, right? They knew George Russell was going to be able to do well enough. So that was fine. They can be like, yep, George Russell's going to get the points in. We're probably not going to be battling for the championships. We can use this year to bed in a Kimi Antonelli. You get rid of Max Verstappen, is Yuki Tsunoda, you're going to say to you, is Red Bull going to say, right, we can bring in Lindblad because Yuki Tsunoda is going to score enough points to get us through it? I don't think so. I don't think so. Not at this point. I know we've only seen Yuki Tsunoda in 2 races, but I don't think so. And I just don't think they'd be able to go for Lindblad and basically say, right, Yuki Tsunoda, you're our clear number one. You're the driver who needs to score all of our points or the majority of our points for a couple of seasons while we bed in this youngster. It's very different when you've got a George Russell in the second seat who's already established himself in the team and has already beaten Lewis Hamilton a couple of times compared to replacing Max Verstappen with a driver who you can't guarantee points next to a driver who can't guarantee points. It just is so hard. I don't think they can go for a rookie. I just don't. Bring back Sebastian, bring back Seb. I don't think Seb wants to come back, is the thing. I just don't think Seb would be that interested in it. Really don't. Max to Cadillac possible next year? No. If Max moves, he's going to go to a team where there's outright possibility that they could be the best team in the sport. Put themselves in a bad spot, putting so much on Max. Great driver, obviously. Yeah, completely agree, Kelly. I just have no idea how it plays out. Carlos and Valtteri Bottas or Pierre, best drivers for Red Bull if Max leaves. But would they want to? Would they want to go there? I suppose Carlos. Carlos quite likes being at Williams, I think. I think they've really, Carlos had the choice of almost every team on the grid last year. You didn't see the Drive to Survive episode. There was Stakes Sauber, Alpine, Williams, all kind of courting him. He chose Williams, and I think he's chosen Williams for a reason. Whether he'd sort of gamble on Red Bull, I mean, maybe just because they've got the facilities already and the money backing them. I don't know. Do I think Audi can be a podium contender next year? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But yeah. But I just don't know. Who goes in there to replace Max Verstappen. And I really want to do a video on it, but I can't come to a pinpoint conclusion of my own. And therefore, I can't, try and sort out the rest of the grid beyond that if I can't do the first thing. The background drama, which may be overblown, doesn't seem to be a calm work environment. Well, it's definitely not, right? They lost 7, 8 key members of staff last year. Adrian Newey was kind of the hallmark one, I guess you could say, or the one that people talked about the most, but genuinely lost so many key members of staff last year at Red Bull. So it makes sense that, again, you'd look at the behind the scenes and sort of leave that with a little bit of space. Leave that with a little bit of space to sort itself out before you decide to go in there. It's so tough. But I was hoping you guys would give me an answer, if I'm honest. But I just don't know if there is one. I actually don't think there is a clear and obvious answer. And Red Bull will find a way to do something ridiculous, won't they? Maybe there's multiple answers. Maybe that's the video. Maybe I just go through every single other option. Most likely to least likely. I could do, yeah. I could do. Kind of do a list of maybe, yeah, that's a good idea, Kelly. That is a very good idea. I kind of did that in a poll, though. I did that in a poll on the old channel. Let me see what I put it on a post. I was like, if Max Verstappen leaves... Yeah, if Verstappen were to leave Red Bull, who would go into his seat? Most people voted for Carlos Sainz, but I could only give 4 options. So maybe that is the step. Maybe I give more options. I need a big list of all the possible options. Who goes in to replace Max Verstappen? Christian Horner as the new driver. I think he'd love that. He loves being the center of attention as Christian Horner. More so than anybody else. But let's go back to Saudi Arabia, shall we? We are here to talk about the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix all in of itself. Stroll goes to Red Bull. That would be hilarious. Maybe. It's a lot of money. But then the money that his dad has got is in Aston Martin. So I don't think the money would transfer in the same way that, when Stroll bounced around from Williams to Racing Point, I don't think the money would kind of follow in that way. I think it would be, Stroll's left, but the money remains in Aston Martin. Bottas. When will qualifying start? That is a very good point. Let's talk about qualifying. We're about to get underway. Saudi Arabian Grand Prix qualifying is about 5 minutes away from us. Let's lap back to your predictions just so you can see them again. Do you agree with these predictions? Do you not agree with these predictions? As I said, I think it was about 2,000-ish votes that people put in over the course of Monday and Tuesday before I got to making these graphics. So this is a fairly chunky consensus when it comes to the voting on these predictions, but it doesn't mean that you can't disagree with what the people are putting forward. I certainly did not agree with these wholeheartedly. I was indifferent. I always put my votes in, one of the couple of thousand that gets put in. So I try and sway the votes in my way, but I can't fight against your guys' general consensus. I feel like Leclerc will sneak a podium. I feel like Ferrari could be in with Leclerc in particular. Lewis Hamilton looks to be struggling again. But yeah, I could certainly see a Charles Leclerc doing pretty well this weekend. Think another Q3 performance from Gasly. Most certainly, yeah. I think Gasly, the Williamses will be in the mix. Possibly the RBs. It's a very tight sort of grouping that we've got in the midfield this year. And we've seen that in the way that everybody has scored points, right? All of the teams have got points on the board now, thanks to Gasly. So Alpine are on the board. Everybody's in the mix. I think the midfield in particular this year is very circuit to circuit dependent, and is fluctuating pretty heavily from weekend to weekend. But let's have a little look at the quali board. Let me get a couple of things loaded up as we're going to start to see some of the radio messages coming through from the drivers. In fact, I can just pop that up on the screen while I get a couple of bits loaded in the background. If you are new to the channel, maybe hit that subscribe button. That'd be massively appreciated. We hit our goal of 120,000 subscribers before the end of the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. We're a couple of days ahead, and I think we're edging even towards 121,000 subscribers, possibly even over that today. Haven't checked it over the course of today. But if you could hit that subscribe button, that'd be amazing. If you could hit the like button, it really does help out the stream and sort of gets us in the algorithm. You know, there's a lot of people that do watch alongs, so your support on this one would be absolutely amazing. And then if you want to go even a step further, you can be an absolute hero and become one of the channel members. Trying to get to 30 members before the end of the season. We're getting there, slowly ebbing up, sort of 1 or 2 a week. Or every race weekend, we managed to get 1 or 2 more. You could be that 30th member for the season, or even just the, you know, the 12th, 13th, 14th member if you join today. That would be absolutely incredible. All of that goes back into the channel, making things better, and trying to make this content as good as it possibly can be. Hope Red Bull won't mess up their pit stops tomorrow. Goodness gracious me. Just subscribe since I'm so entertaining. There you go. And that wasn't, you know, a directed thing. I didn't tell him to write that. You know, it's not like TripAdvisor where I've just opened up 15 new emails. That wasn't me on a ghost account. That was Hatake from the heart. And Sarah's been here for a long time. Here we go then. Everything is loaded up in the background. Let me swap it across and get going. Track clear. 18 minutes on the board for the first qualifying session here in Saudi Arabia. We're going to lose 5 drivers. Who will those 5 be? Hello, Sally. How's it going? Sorry you're late. You're not. You are right on time. 18 minutes of qualifying is headed in our direction. And a lot of the drivers actually taking to the track already, or taking to the pit lane, I should say already. The track not open as of yet. The Haas of Ollie Behrman, front of the queue. His teammate Esteban Ocon behind him. The Stake Saubers behind that. Aston Martin's joining in as well. I think the RBs and possibly a Williams. Yeah, the Williams is there in the queue also. So a lot of the drivers wanting to get out early, which is a weird one, to be honest. A lot of the time, especially because this is, 1, a street circuit, and 2, a circuit that doesn't really get used for anything else throughout the rest of the year. It's one of those circuits where it can be very dusty. It takes a little while for it to really start to grip up, even with the free practice sessions and obviously the other races that are going on throughout the weekend. It does take a little while for it to grip up. But then on the other side of things, we also often, on the flip side, see that the lap times start to come to the drivers as they continue on, right? So as much as you want to get out there, you want to get some rubber down, you want to clear up the track, you're kind of just doing that for the people behind you. So you want to be as late out and as late across the line as you possibly can be when it comes to Saudi Arabian qualifying. So interesting that these drivers are going out early, although none of the big boys really getting involved as of yet. Ocon, Behrman, Doohan, Hulkenberg, Bortoletto, Albon, the drivers currently making their way out of the pits. As I say that, Lando Norris blinks first of the top teams and joins the queue at the end of the pit lane. A Ferrari has just come out behind him as well. Can't see if that's Hamilton or Leclerc. I'll keep you up to date with that. But Esteban Ocon is going to be the first driver to get a lap time in the streets of Saudi Arabia. It's already 1 a.m. Goodness gracious, Christian. You are committed. Love that. Love to see it. Esteban Ocon. He's one of the sort of outside shouts this weekend to do something a little bit special. He always seems to be in the mix at the front of the pack, does Esteban Ocon, over the last few Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. I think he's led a couple of Saudi Arabian Grand Prix, even in an Alpine. Just always seems to get the right strategy at the right time, does Esteban Ocon, when it comes to Saudi Arabia. Similar, I guess you could say, to what he did in Brazil last year, when he managed to get that second place finish in and amongst the chaos. I am imagining that there's going to be safety cars and red flags are flying over the course of the two competitive sessions that we've had. Only the one red flag I can recollect from free practice 2, where Yuki Tsunoda found the barriers at the final corner, just clipped the inside wall, sent himself into the outside of turn 27. But I think we're expecting there to be at least one red flag, I reckon, during this qualifying. Maybe a red flag and a couple of safety cars during the race tomorrow as well, especially with the change of tyres, meaning that they are a step softer. There is a little bit less grip once they start to decay, and the degradation is going to be a little bit higher than we normally see here in Saudi Arabia. Esteban Ocon, though, is going to set the standard. He's just coming around the final corner. DRS wide open as he comes towards the line, and it's going to be a 129.9 for Esteban Ocon as he gets us underway. Lando Norris has just started his flying lap just behind as well. It was Charles Leclerc was the first Ferrari out of the garage. Lewis Hamilton behind him, though. So the two Ferraris just coming around the final corner as well. Jack Doohan is going to cross the line to go second fastest at the moment as Nico Hülkenberg takes top spot from him. But Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton are now starting their flying laps. As expected, Lando Norris goes quickest of anybody in that first sector. The McLarens have looked like not just the team to beat so far this season, but predominantly quicker than the rest over the course of the weekend so far in the first 3 free practice sessions. Lando Norris surely in the battle for pole position today, but needs to guarantee that by getting a lap in, making sure he doesn't drop out in this first bottom 5 drivers. We need to see what the respective lap times of everybody are going to be. Hello, Antonio. How are we doing? Good afternoon indeed. Well, afternoon for you, not so much for a lot of the other people watching. Alex Albon currently top of the timing sheets, but that is going to be beaten by Lando Norris pretty comfortably looking at his sector times, and Lando Norris does indeed goes to the top of the timing sheets with a 128.0 for the McLaren man. That is 0.5 of a second quicker than Charles Leclerc as Charles Leclerc comes across the line. Charles Leclerc quickest in the final sector though, so not bad at all from the Monegasque right at this moment in time. That should be enough to get them through. We're looking at a few drivers still yet to set a lap time, one of them being the current world champion Max Verstappen, who has just started his first flying lap of the evening in Saudi Arabia. He's not too far off Lando Norris through the first sector, actually, Verstappen. That's a pretty solid opening gambit from the Red Bull man. 4 thousandths of a second adrift of Lando Norris's first sector time. Maybe Max Verstappen is also in the mix for pole position. Didn't look comfortable yesterday, but started to move in the right direction earlier today. Maybe they can get it right just as qualifying comes to a peak. And he's 14 thousandths of a second off Lando Norris through the middle sector as Max Verstappen. So this is going to be a time that goes very, very close to the top of the timesheets, if not to the very top of it. Still waiting for Oscar Piastri, of course, to set a lap time as well. He's done the first sector in a 32 dead. Verstappen a 10th adrift of Lando Norris overall then. Yuki Tsunoda was actually quickest through the middle sector of anybody until Oscar Piastri did the middle sector and has just gone purple through that part of the track with a 27.7 from the Australian through that middle part. Lando Norris under pressure from his teammate in the championship. Will he be under pressure here for pole position as well? Here comes Yuki Tsunoda, and that's a much better time from Yuki Tsunoda than we've seen over the past couple of weeks, although he was not too bad when it came to qualifying 1 in Japan. It was qualifying 2 where he made that mistake down in towards the first couple of corners, but Tsunoda just 0.3 off of his teammate, but right in the mix. 2 McLarens and 2 Red Bulls at the top. And Oscar Piastri was able to do it, by the way, 0.7 of a second quicker than his teammate. Piastri, a 128.019 to Norris's 0.026. That means Bortoleto and Ocon have dropped down into the bottom of the pack. Oh, Kimi Antonelli has to get out of the way of, is that some sort of rubbish bag, I think, on the circuit? So Kimi Antonelli probably going to have to abort that lap because he had to move out of the way of that. Oh, no, that was the end of his flying lap. That's okay from Kimi Antonelli. Just seen his lap time come through. 7th fastest overall for the Italian. And it's the 2 RBs then that we are missing from our lap timings. Hadjar and Lawson both about to come across the line though. Hadjar up into 9th place, 7.5 off the fastest lap time, but good enough to get him through right now ahead of Lewis Hamilton and Alonso and Gasly, the kind of drivers that he's been in the mix with in the first 4 races so far this year. And Ollie Behrman then is actually starting another flying lap after seeing that he has dropped down into that bottom 5. Liam Lawson is just making his way around the final sector, which will give us a full lap time from everybody involved. But as I say, the lap evolution and the track evolution that we get here in Saudi Arabia is going to be massive. So don't think that just because somebody is at the bottom of the timing sheets now, they haven't got a little bit more in the tank, because I feel like it's going to change very, very quickly indeed. Well, I have to wait and see, though. Carlos Sainz already showing that, going 0.2 of a second quicker than Nico Hülkenberg's current 15th place time. Carlos Sainz down in 18th at the moment. It's not looking too bad, though. Ollie Behrman crosses the line into the top 10. Ollie Behrman goes, but then Carlos Sainz displaces him from that position. Carlos Sainz goes into the top 10, but it is very tight indeed, and it feels like that lap evolution is going to be so crucial. Lando Norris has actually gone quickest of anybody in the first sector, but then slower than his previous lap in the middle sector. Did he slightly overcook the tyres? Possibly, but fastest again in the final sector. Lando Norris means that he'll move back to the top of the timing sheets, and he's actually found a couple of attempts. And this is what I mean by the track evolving and the track getting quicker underneath the drivers. They're just going to be able to find that little bit more grip, especially as these soft compound tyres start to bleed some rubber into the surface. Oh, and Isaac Hadjar gets incredibly close. I think possibly even kisses the wall with his rear right tyre there, Isaac Hadjar. Did well to keep it in a straight line and not be the first driver to drop out of this qualifying session. 6.5 minutes left to go, though, inside of this first qualifying session in Saudi Arabia. Lewis Hamilton down in 18th at the moment, has improved in the first sector, improved in the second sector as well as Lewis Hamilton. So Hamilton now looking to try and get himself out of that bottom 5. do I think that Yuki will be close to max? He's 0.3 of a second off at the minute. Could close in. If he's a couple of tenths off Max Verstappen, it's maybe not too bad. I think just getting through to Q3 is an absolute must for Yuki Tsunoda this weekend. I know he did it last weekend, but he needs to make that a regular occurrence. And then it's that next step of, okay, how close can he get to Verstappen? How close can he get to the podium places? Liam Lawson coming back into the garage on our screen, 17th fastest. And Lawson just really doesn't look himself this season at all, does he? Had that torrid time with Red Bull, qualifying right at the back of the pack every single time around. 2 races he got. Well, I say every single time around. He only got 3 qualifying sessions, bless him. And then just hasn't looked himself, even moving back to the RB team. Nothing that amazing to write home about in Japan, neither in Bahrain. And Lawson now in that bottom 5 once again, whilst Isaac Hadjar, not entirely safe, only 13th fastest, but faster nonetheless. Jack Doohan, Pierre Gasly, Esteban Ocon, and Gabriel Bortoleto, the other 4 drivers in that bottom 5 that now only have 5 minutes to improve on that lap time before they will be knocked out of qualifying. And it's not where you want to be in Saudi Arabia. It's not like the track is impossible to overtake on, but it's a pretty tricky one. You need a pretty substantial tyre advantage a lot of the time. And Albon touches the wall. Alex Albon getting, well, too close to the wall, you could say, but just close enough to brush his wheel up against it in that middle sector. Cost him quite a bit of time, though, Alex Albon, as he had to dart away from the wall. I think just out of a little bit of hesitance in that middle part of the lap. So Albon unlikely to improve on his 9th fastest time at the moment. It is Jack Doohan, Liam Lawson, Pierre Gasly, Esteban Ocon, and Gabriel Bortoleto that need to improve the most. Alex Albon does actually improve on his lap time, even with that poor middle sector. That's pretty good going, and I think just shows actually, again, that track evolution that we see here. Oh, as Pierre Gasly tries to move out of the garage with the tyre blanket still caught in the wheel. That's, ooh, might get themselves a little bit of a fine there for releasing the car in an unsafe condition. But they did manage to get that tyre blanket off of the front right tyre of Pierre Gasly's car. And he is now away and making his way onto the track. Fresh set of softs onto the Pierre Gasly's car as well. Not too bad. They're going for it down at Alpine. They really don't want to be in this bottom 5. And you can see those drivers. You're looking at sort of, I feel like with the track evolution, honestly, even, I was going to say George Russell. George Russell's maybe safe. Yuki Tsunoda, Alonso, not necessarily at this point, I don't think. It feels like that's in and around where the lap time's going to fall as these tyres come towards the drivers and as the track starts to grip up. 2 minutes left to go. Be interesting to see also who manages to play it perfectly and be that last driver across the line. Jack Doohan is already 0.3 up on Ollie Behrman's 15th place time just through the first sector. So absolutely flying Jack Doohan now in comparison to the lap time that he did previously. I know that he wasn't too far off Ollie Behrman. He's 3 thousandths of a second adrift, but being 0.3 up already, very impressive indeed. Jack Doohan, though, has lost a couple attempts through that middle sector. Also looking at Isaac Hadjar right now, as he's just improved through the first sector on his next flying lap time. Keeping an eye on him because I want to see whether or not Liam Lawson is going to be able to match his kind of lap time. Isaac Hadjar at 32.2 through the first sector. Let's see what Liam Lawson can do. It's 32.29. Okay, it's not too bad. Not too far off is Liam Lawson. Maybe this time is the time. Jack Doohan gets across the line. It's 13th fastest for Jack Doohan, which really doesn't feel like it's going to be enough. Isaac Hadjar then jumps up into 10th place. Lawson is doing a lot better. So Ollie Behrman has now dropped into that bottom 5. Max Verstappen, whilst we're talking about the drivers towards the back end of the grid, has jumped up to the top of the timing sheets. A 127.778 from Max Verstappen means he goes quickest. And Carlos Sainz has gone into 7th spot. There was a yellow flag in the first sector briefly there. Did somebody come to a stop or maybe have a little bit of a spin? It's now green once again. Ollie Behrman is improving, but not by much. Ollie Behrman's going to be right on the bubble here, if my calculations are correct, through the first and second sectors. Pierre Gasly improving also. That bottom 5 is going to be very tight indeed. Lewis Hamilton comes across the line for the first sector. He's 0.3 off Verstappen's lap time. Pierre Gasly, a much better lap time. 9th fastest from Pierre. 10th fastest then from Ollie Behrman. And Gasly and Behrman, will that be safe enough? Lewis Hamilton, now the man on the bubble. And Oscar Piastri, I think, has missed the checkered flag. Oh, no, he's come into the pits anyway. Ollie Behrman has completed his lap. So has Gasly. So it's actually, I think, Yuki Tsunoda, the last man across the line for Red Bull, who is still on a flying lap. Might be slightly wrong. I didn't look perfectly. As we look at Lewis Hamilton trying to improve, Lance Stroll has come across the start-finish line and will not improve. So Stroll is going to be out. Lewis Hamilton goes up to 9th fastest. So Stroll and Doohan are guaranteed to be out. Isaac Hadjar comes into the pits on the bubble in 15th place. Nico Hülkenberg is not going to improve, though. So Hülkenberg down in 18th place. Gabriel Bortoleto also not going to improve. And it was Gabriel Bortoleto that was the driver that caused that yellow flag, I think. Lost himself down towards turn 1. Just went, well, basically straight on at turn 2. Lost the rear end of the car as well. Max Verstappen had to evade. And Gabriel Bortoleto really not finding a rhythm inside of that Stake Sauber car at the moment, is he? After winning Formula 2 last year and looking to be one of the rookies to sort of come in with the most momentum behind them. That car has just been torrid to drive. Nico Hülkenberg not able to get it out of the first part of qualifying either. So both of the Stake Sauber cars down and out in 18th and 20th. Esteban Ocon, between the two of them, was not expecting that at all. As I said before, Ocon has been pretty handy around this circuit in the past, but not able to do it this time around was Esteban Ocon. And Ocon, unfortunately, dropping down in 19th place. Jack Doohan inside of that Alpine. Now got a guarantee that he will be with the team until the summer break. So taking a little bit of the pressure off his shoulders, but nonetheless has dropped out of this qualifying session the first time of asking. And then finally, Lance Stroll, who started the season well, Lance Stroll. A little bit of a shame. Doesn't go well here in Saudi Arabia, though, does Lance Stroll. And I have to say it, you guys did predict Lance Stroll not to have an amazing weekend, and it hasn't started insanely well either. Lance Stroll, 16th place and out. So 15 drivers will continue on to the second part of qualifying. Yellow flags going up in various different sectors. Maybe a little bit of dust being swept away. Not so sure. An investigation came in on Lewis Hamilton as well during that part of the session. Completely missed that. Incident involving car 44 noted. Failing to follow the race director's instructions. Maximum delta time to be investigated after the session. Lewis Hamilton. So possibly going a little bit slower than he should have been on one of those preparation laps was Lewis Hamilton. That'll be investigated as the weekend progresses and after the session is finished. But there's still a lot of drivers in the mix here. It's got that classic top 8, although Alex Albon and Carlos Sainz getting in and amongst it. Charles Leclerc, actually, the biggest name closest to the drop zone in 13th spot. It's those midfield cars, though. The Williams is looking stunningly quick here. Gasly and Behrman in 10th and 11th place. I'd back them to improve. So looking at you like Alonso's, Hadjar's, Lawson's as the drivers that are maybe most likely to drop out in this second part of qualifying. But they've got to do it all over again. The times are reset. Everything that you've just done is basically worth nothing now. And Albon wanting the car checked over as he gets into the garage, as he did clip the wall pretty heavily at turn 16, did Alex Albon. He still managed to go quicker that lap, though, which is impressive. I think just judging it, getting a little bit of Pirelli paint onto those Pirelli tyres was Alex Albon. Jack getting that contract extension race by race. I think he wasn't it the first 7 races that he initially had on his contract? And now I think it is guaranteed to be until the summer break. It was something like that. It was like 7 races or 10 races maybe. I can't remember the exact numbers off the top of my head, which is poor. But yeah, Jack Doohan wasn't guaranteed until the summer break initially. But now the sort of rumors around it are that he is guaranteed to be there until the summer. Of course, it's Formula One. What's a contract really worth when they can just sort of buy you out of it at any point? You know, we've seen Daniel Ricciardo was supposed to be another sort of another year at McLaren. That didn't happen. Sergio Perez was supposed to be in Red Bull until 2026. That didn't happen. Drivers fall out of contracts fairly swiftly. Am I speaking results before it updates here? Yeah, I think the stream slightly separated itself for some reason. So I will have a little look at that. And I have reset it. So hopefully it should be a little bit closer to the time. Don't really know what went on with multi-viewer there. But as I say, I'll just double check it. Yeah, apply that. We'll reset it. Why not, actually? Because we've got the time between the 2 sessions. Why is Hamilton under investigation? For going too slowly on one of his warm-up laps. So, I have to see. Oh, and Lance Stroll being told to stay in the car as the Aston Martin team have put forward a case for track limits. Of course, we saw last time around Nico Hülkenberg got through to Q2 when he shouldn't have in Bahrain. Should have actually been Alex Albon that made his way through to Q2. Didn't take advantage of it, though, the Steak Sauber man. But still very annoying when you're Alex Albon and you think that you were out of qualifying, but actually you should have still been in it. So, I have to see. We are getting underway once again, though. Alex Albon getting out on track early. Lance Stroll, haven't heard anything more from that Aston Martin radio message, so maybe they've given up on it. We'll have to wait and see. But Albon, the first man out on track. Again, the track's going to continue to evolve, though, so being first out, not necessarily in your favour, unless you're expecting somebody to make a meal of it. And there comes the cavalry. Goodness gracious. All the cars out into the pit lane. Oscar Piastri has to make space for Carlos Sainz. One of the RB cars is also just trying to nab his way into the mix. I think Charles Leclerc has to subside. Everybody had the same idea at exactly the same time. Maybe Alex Albon was on the right idea, getting himself out nice and early. Just not battling with everybody for track position inside of the pit lane. Here comes Lando Norris's McLaren is next in the queue to leave the pit exit. Fernando Alonso behind him. Keeping an eye on Alex Albon, though, just coming around the final corner. And Alex Albon will be the first driver to set a fast lap time here. What does the diagonal line mean on the tyre? It means it is a used set of tyres. So you can see that Alex Albon has already done 4 laps on those soft compound tyres, whereas Max Verstappen, for instance, or Oscar Piastri, they have not got a line through the tyre, which means it is a fresh set of tyres. Good question. But yeah, used tyres versus fresh tyres. Q2, indeed. We are headed into Q2. Liam Lawson is now being investigated for an unsafe release. Unsafe release, Liam Lawson. So that's usually pretty slam dunk if that's the case. Alex Albon, quickest in the first sector. He's the only driver who's done the first sector in this session, but quickest in the first sector nonetheless. Sets the standard at a 130, just a 32.2. That'd be a very slow first sector. 27.9 through the middle sector as well. And Albon is going to set the standard here. Got Piastri just behind. Carlos Sainz actually getting out of the way of his teammate, but doesn't want to. And in fact, they might have nailed this, to be honest, the Williams team, because Albon is going to finish his lap, and then he's going to be able to give Carlos Sainz a little bit of a tow, then move out of the way. Williams with a perfect little ballet dance there between the two of their drivers. Sainz getting a little bit of an extra tow down towards turn 1, and then Albon out of the way. Oscar Piastri, though, starting his flying lap. So is Fernando Alonso behind. George Russell and Verstappen. Antonelli actually just about to come over the line. Liam Lawson there too. So let's keep an eye on those. Ooh. Liam Lawson has been cleared of that unsafe release, so no further action for Liam Lawson. Must have just been the way that the lap was. Oscar Piastri then, much quicker through the first sector, a 32 dead. And it does feel like Piastri is going to fairly comfortably move ahead of Alex Albon in the timing sheets. Ollie Behrman only goes second fastest. Pierre Gasly, though, is able to actually go to the top of the timing sheets for now. The Frenchman with a 128.4. Max Verstappen has just gone quickest of anybody through the first sector, though. Isaac Hadjar finishes his lap to go 4th fastest in the RB. Carlos Sainz goes quickest with a 128.3. Was looking pretty good, Carlos Sainz. And shows it. As I say, got a little bit of a tow down towards turn 1 as well. But Oscar Piastri is going to set something of a rocket ship time here. Put Carlos Sainz's time to shame, and he does indeed. 0.6 of a second quicker than Carlos Sainz. I know Sainz is in a Williams, but still, that is a sublime time from Oscar Piastri. And I think Max Verstappen is going to go even quicker still. Verstappen, quickest of anybody in the first sector, improves in the middle sector as well. George Russell then coming across the line for Mercedes. Only 3rd fastest. Verstappen comes across the line and goes to the top of the sheet. He is a couple of tenths, well, a 10.5 quicker than Oscar Piastri. Max Verstappen is well in the mix here. Not looking like it was going to be his weekend at all when it came to Friday practice, but Max Verstappen just knows when to hit the gears, doesn't he? Comes into qualifying after a torrid weekend in Bahrain. Now looks like he's going to be right in the mix for pole position. Charles Leclerc can only go 4th fastest on the timing sheets. Hamilton, his teammate, slots in a couple of tenths behind. And Yuki Tsunoda actually splits the Ferraris. The problem is we know how quick that Red Bull is. And Yuki Tsunoda 6.5 tenths off of his teammate. Can Lando Norris go to the top of the seat? Yes, he can. Lando Norris with a 127.4, and it does feel like it's going to be those three, Norris, Verstappen, Piastri, not only battling for the championship possibly this year, but definitely battling for pole position here as well. George Russell goes 4th fastest, and he's been pretty consistently there too. I feel like George Russell is not out of the championship talk as of yet this season, especially considering we know it can fluctuate as the year progresses. Oscar Piastri, actually got a little bit out of shape, so definitely some time to find from Oscar Piastri as he was finding his way through the middle sector. A couple of corrections in those fast-flowing corners that you get. And yeah, actually bobbling over the curbs a touch was Piastri. So definitely some time to find for the Australian. It is Albon, Behrman, Hadjar, Alonso, and Lawson, the 5 drivers down there. So, as we kind of expected, the 2 RBs and Fernando Alonso in that bottom 5. But Albon being outdone by Carlos Sainz is a little bit of an eye-opening one. And Pierre Gasly again doing the business inside of the Alpine. Ollie Behrman, of course, are still a rookie. You know, you look at Hadjar and Behrman doing it for the rookies out there. Kimi Antonelli also. Kind of forget that Kimi Antonelli is also in the rookie discussions because he just is in a much better car than all of the other rookies. And, the Red Bull mechanics actually having a little look underneath Max Verstappen's car. Did the Dutchman possibly get a little bit over the curbs and cause some damage to the bottom end of that Red Bull? Let's take a little look. There's a little bit of a bump from Verstappen. Yeah, turn 4, turn 5. Yeah, that was a big bump from Verstappen. I can understand why they're having a look. He really caught the curb inside of that Red Bull car. And Red Bull will just have a little look at the plank. You know when you've hit the curbs, don't you? It's one of those, like, even in a car that, you know, in my car, I know when I've hit a bump, you really feel it in one of these Formula One cars. That is going to send a bit of a shock through the spine for Max Verstappen. Liam Lawson yet to set a lap time. The man demoted from Red Bull to RB and has managed to make it through to Q2. So looking up compared to very slow start to this first qualifying session, but managed to get through. 15th fastest at the moment, but definitely not out of it yet. Wouldn't put my money on him making through to Q3, but still in the mix nonetheless. Kimi Antonelli, 0.8 of a second off of it. Hello, Mini Med JD. You are new. How you doing? How's it going? Why they scrapped the rainbow tires? I think it was just because it was really hard to remember which one's which. It's still the same plethora. It's still the C1 to C6. It's just, instead of it being a rainbow of tires, they just pick 3 sets for each weekend. So I think this weekend it's the C3, C4, and C5. George Russell on an out lap now. Alex Albon also on an out lap, wanting to get done before anybody else. No, sorry, Alex Albon on a flying lap. Wow, that is very early from Alex Albon to go for a flying lap already. Does improve though, goes 6th fastest. Does Alex Albon. 4 minutes and 10 seconds on the clock. And Williams maybe gambling on somebody making a mistake. Of course, there's always the possibility of a red flag here in Saudi Arabia. The walls being so close, and especially the opening sort of few curbs being, well, as Max Verstappen saw, pretty tricky to deal with. Turns 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You can easily lose yourself in and amongst those wavy curves, very high speed. And we're looking at the Red Bulls at the back of the pack. Yuki Tsunoda actually out of the garage before Max Verstappen. They're going to be the last drivers out on the grid, I think. And I think Lando Norris is actually deciding to keep his powder dry. Lando Norris staying in the pits. Everybody else is out there. Max Verstappen then is going to be the last driver out into this final, or second part of qualifying, I should say. Thank you for subscribing to the channel. Appreciate it, mate. Norris, a 127.4 to beat. But what we're really looking at is Antonelli, currently 10th fastest. A 128.3 is the current cut-off zone. But Antonelli now looking to improve. Coming down towards turn 1. The Italian, his first time racing here at Saudi Arabia in Formula 1. His 5th race of his Formula 1 career. It's been a very, very solid start. Had it not been for the ill-timed safety car last time out in Bahrain, he would have probably scored points in all 4 of his opening 4 race weekends. He went 3 for 3, and Antonelli looking to get back onto point-scoring form. He's a 10th or so up on his first sector time. Gone green through there. Piastri's also improved through the first sector. So's George Russell. Carlos Sainz actually a little bit down on his own first sector time. A 32.0 through the first sector from Carlos Sainz. He's not safe at all, is Carlos, in 9th place at the moment. His teammate Alex Albon, though, into the pits he comes. So Williams have decided to go 1 early, 1 late. Carlos Sainz getting the benefit of being the later driver. Ollie Behrman also, though, hasn't improved through the first sector either. So Behrman not looking likely to sneak his way through like he did last year. Kimi Antonelli moves up to 5th fastest. Behrman again, a poor middle sector from him. So unlikely to get through is Ollie Behrman. Fernando Alonso is also on an outlap in the Aston Martin. Is going right now. Hadjar and Lawson also down in that bottom 5 at the moment. Here comes Ollie Behrman then. Didn't improve in the first or second sectors. It's going to have to be a really good third sector if he's going to get there, and he doesn't. It's a 10th or 2 slower than he was before. So Behrman is going to be out of qualifying here. Isaac Hadjar improves, but it's only 11th from Isaac Hadjar. So he is going to remain in that bottom 5 as well. Liam Lawson, his teammate, just finishing his lap behind. Can Lawson get himself out? He can. Lawson moves up into 10th place, who is right on the bubble. But Lewis Hamilton is completing a lap behind. Lewis Hamilton, though, slow through the middle sector comparatively to last lap. Charles Leclerc finishes his lap to go 6th fastest. So Sainz and Albon currently through. Hamilton comes across the line, though, to make himself safe. Puts himself 8th place there between the 2 Williams cars. Here comes Gasly across the line, and Gasly goes 8th fastest, and that puts Yuki Tsunoda now into the bottom 5. And Tsunoda wasn't quick through the first sector. Alonso is coming around the final couple of bends. DRS wide open for the Aston Martin. Can't improve enough. Only goes 13th fastest. Can Tsunoda get himself through? Yes. Just about 7th fastest from Tsunoda. That puts Alex Albon down into that bottom 5. And Albon, unfortunately, just losing out by being earliest across the line there, I think. The degradation not playing in Alex Albon's favour, and the track evolution just playing against him. He was 7 thousandths of a second slower than Lewis Hamilton. And Lewis Hamilton can breathe a sigh of relief. Goodness me, Albon, very close indeed. Liam Lawson wasn't good enough. Alonso wasn't good enough. Hadjar and Behrman also drop out in that bottom 5. Oh my goodness, I didn't look across the screen. Sally, thank you so much. 5 gifted members, if you managed to get one of those. Dirty Blitz, Panon, Abra, Mira, and Yisrael. Say thank you to Sally. That is absolutely amazing. Thank you so much, Sally. Come and join us for the race tomorrow. Thank you. Yeah. Post-race show, of course, you did get access to a post-race show and some more benefits coming. Like, I was hoping to have those benefits ready and raring to go for the new season, but the house move is slowly happening. You know, that house move that was supposed to happen before the season started? It's now actually going to happen. So we're only 5 races in. No, thank you so much, Sally. Really do appreciate that. Everyone included, not applicable. Happy Easter for tomorrow. Thank you. Anyone doing anything exciting for Easter? In fact, I spent the morning baking some Easter bits for my family for tomorrow. There you go. So that was my Easter preparation, and then going to see my parents for a couple of hours before the Grand Prix. Of course, I'm going to be back for the Grand Prix. Wouldn't miss it. Is this track hybrid, permanent, and street track? It's a bit of a weird one, yeah. It is a street circuit, but obviously not on like real. Well, they are real streets. Is it? Yeah, it's a bit of a hybrid one. That's probably the best way to describe it. You've described it better than I can. It's a bit of a mix of both sort of full-time track and also streets of Abu Dhabi. But was purpose built in sections for Formula One, and to be honest, there isn't a lot of racing at all outside of just Formula One around this circuit. Gonna see your grandparents? Miss out on the race? No. Oh no, you're joking. Thank goodness. Ooh. Don't miss out on the race. Like, go and see your family, but get it done early. You know what I mean? More points for Sainz and Antonelli? Certainly on the cards. So Albon, Lawson, Alonso, Hadjar, and Behrman, the 5 drivers that have now dropped out of qualifying 2. They joined Stroll, Doohan, Hulkenberg, Ocon, and Bortoletto in that bottom 5. So the bottom 10 from 11th to 20th is now set. Lewis Hamilton still under investigation, by the way, for being too slow on one of his outlaps during Q1. We'll have to wait and see how that plays out. I can't remember what kind of penalty that has had in the past. It's not something that comes up loads, to be honest, especially considering nowadays the drivers generally just wait in a queue in the pit lane rather than what they used to do, which was wait in a queue round the final couple of corners. So whichever way you kind of see it, the drivers still wait in a queue to make sure that they've got a nice bit of clean air in front of them. But Norris, Verstappen, Piastri does feel like it's going to be our battle for pole position. The 2 Mercedes cars keeping themselves ever closer to the top of the table. They know that those points are available, don't they, the Mercedes team? They're just keeping themselves right within touch and distance, just in case. I don't think they'll be close enough to catch McLaren in the Constructors' Championship, but you never know when it comes to the Drivers' Championship. George Russell doing absolutely everything that he can to just make sure that he's still within talking distance of the top drivers on the championship sheet. Charles Leclerc in 6th place there in Q2. I was expecting a little bit more from Charles Leclerc. I was expecting him to be quick around here, but hasn't quite been able to nail it yet. Maybe it will all come together just as Q3 comes to a head. Yuki Tsunoda making his way through inside of that Red Bull. 0.5 of a second off the top of the timing sheets and 4.5 tenths off of his teammates. You'd maybe say that Tsunoda should be a touch closer, but through to Q3 nonetheless. Carlos Sainz and Pierre Gasly are 2 midfield cars, which join our kind of standard top 8 in there. So Carlos Sainz, the quicker of them, 5.5 tenths off the top spot. Gasly in 9th place, and Lewis Hamilton, 7 thousandths of a second separated him, and a trip to being out in Q2. But he is still in there, and Hamilton the opportunity to improve on that 10th place. Just for the people that are joining right at the end of qualifying, because I know some people, they just like to get here as the crescendo happens. Got to get here early, be involved. But no, I can understand it. I can understand it. For those guys that are just joining now, The 10 drivers that have already been eliminated from qualifying were Alex Albon in 11th place, Liam Lawson, Fernando Alonso, Isaac Hadjar, and Ollie Behrman dropped out in Q2 with Alex Albon. And then Lance Stroll, Jack Doohan, Nico Hulkenberg, Esteban Ocon, and Gabriel Bortoleto dropped out in Q1. They will start 16th to 20th tomorrow. Max Verstappen dragging his tractor to pole position yet again. He just always seems to be able to find something a little bit special, doesn't he? It's sort of every other race this season. Was all right in Australia, then did terribly in China, or not terribly, but wasn't a fun weekend for him in China. Ended up in that kind of 6th, 7th place battle for a lot of it. Then wins in Japan. Then is like 6th, 7th place again, isn't it, for Max Verstappen? That's sort of the best that he could have possibly asked for when it came to last time out in Bahrain. And now in the mix to win it once again. It's very to and fro for Max Verstappen, the ups and the downs, although the downs aren't too far off the pace either. Can I give you a shout out? I can. Minimed JD. Piastri for pole. Go on then. Let's get our predictions in. You got to choose one of the three. Is it going to be Norris, Verstappen, or Piastri? Or maybe you want to have, a little bit of an outside shout for George Russell, possibly. You have to see. Piastri is actually going to be first out on track. Talking of the McLarens. Piastri coming down towards turn 1. George Russell behind him. Antonelli also joined in the queue. A little bit less of a worry about traffic now that you're in Q3. You get the privilege of having a bit more space out on track. But still a queue in the pit lane nonetheless, as everybody jostles for their perfect position as they want to get that tyre warm up exactly spot on. See who's got a fresh set of rubber on. So Antonelli, Leclerc, Sainz, Verstappen, all on used sets of soft compound tyres by the looks of things. Hamilton on a used set of tyres as well. So I think Norris and Piastri are the only two drivers that are on a fresh set of soft tyres right now. I know George Russell's got another set of softs as well. Norris for pole, Oscar, Max for pole. It's very mixed in the chat. Very mixed indeed. Can Hamilton win his 8th World Drivers' Championship this year? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. George Russell then. Inside of the Mercedes. Again, just can't count him out, can you? I want to say it's between those three, Norris, Verstappen, Piastri, but if George Russell was able to find something, he is called Mr. Saturday for a reason. And I don't want to count him out when it comes to the Drivers' Championship either. He's just started the season so incredibly quickly, has George Russell. Oscar Piastri, though, is now on a flying lap inside of his McLaren car. Let's see what he can set the standard at and whether Norris, Verstappen, Russell can get close to the Australian. Antonelli, Leclerc fighting for that supremacy in the middle of the top 10 as well. Carlos Sainz versus Pierre Gasly. Which of those two midfield cars will start higher tomorrow? Piastri weaving through the first sector, passing Yuki Tsunoda on the way as well. Tsunoda shuffling out of the way. Tsunoda actually a little bit of space now that Piastri is overtaking him. Get those tyres in the right window. And Piastri sets the first sector at a 31.8. Russell can only do a 31.9. Antonelli a 32 dead. So Piastri quickest still in the first sector, even after the Mercedes cars have gone through it. Then sets the standard at a 27.6 through the middle sector. That seems like a nice little middle sector as well from Oscar Piastri. George Russell wants the floor to be checked inside of his Mercedes car. So possibly has clipped. Oh my goodness me. Piastri gets as close to the wall as you could possibly ask for. And there's a double yellow, and I think that is Lando Norris. That is Lando Norris. Oscar Piastri sets the time at a 1:27.5, but everybody else is going to come to a stop as the red flag is waved, and Lando Norris is going to be out of qualifying. Wow. Lando Norris has dropped it in turn 4, turn 5. Haven't seen a replay of it yet, but the McLaren of Lando Norris is facing in the wrong direction and I think is missing at least a rear left tyre and possibly a bit of that rear wing as well. Let's watch the replay of it then. Just coming through the very fast first sector, coming down towards turn 4. Oh, gets on the curb at turn 5. And it's straight into the wall in front of him. Just a shake and a shimmy, and the walls are just so close here that any little mistake does not go unpunished. And he, just hit the throttle too hard, jumped on top of the... we've seen a lot of the drivers do it today. Max Verstappen, of course, George Russell possibly as well, has just gone over that curb and just taken a little bit too much. And Lando Norris has just done exactly the same, but with dire consequences. Lando Norris hitting the wall on the outside of turn 5 there. And that's going to be the end of his qualifying session. And 8.5 minutes left on the clock. It's going to be a little bit of a weird end to qualifying here. It's almost going to be a one-lap quali for a lot of these guys. But Lando Norris not able to take part in it. The medical car is just making his way to go and collect Lando Norris. The crane will be out to move that McLaren car off of the racetrack as well. And Lando Norris frustrated on the radio, but does seem okay at least. 8 minutes still to play though. Not over yet. Piastri, the only man who was able to set a full lap time before the red flag dropped. Russell and Antonelli were through the middle sector. Leclerc, Sainz had just completed the first sector. But that won't matter as Piastri with a 1:27.5 is the only man to set a full lap time. Lando Norris is okay. He's all good. He's out of the car. The medical car has just gone and picked him up. So he'll be making his way back to the pit lane in the medical car. Just seeing the McLaren car also getting picked up by the crane. It's just outside of there as well, moving that car out of the way. And we will get back underway with qualifying in a few minutes' time. If you are here, leave a like on the video. That'd be absolutely amazing. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. We're trying to get up towards 130,000 subscribers. We absolutely smashed our goal of 120,000 subscribers. Before looking underneath George Russell's car. So Russell possibly has done similar to what Max Verstappen did earlier, although Verstappen managed to get back out once again. What was I saying? Hit a like, subscribe, all that good stuff. We smashed 120,000 subscribers. Now, can we get 130,000 subscribers? That is the next goal along the way. Which driver does this high-speed track favor to win this race? It's a great question. I mean, the Mercedes cars actually looked pretty good in the high speed last time out in Bahrain. That was the reason that Lando Norris just couldn't get past George Russell, because George Russell in the high speed sections of the Bahrain circuit was able to keep Lando Norris at bay effectively. So I'd say the Mercedes cars look pretty decent in this kind of high speed environment. Depends how cool the track is, of course, by the time we get to the race itself. I'd normally say Ferrari look good in the high speeds, but Charles Leclerc hasn't looked to be sort of threatening the top spots of qualifying so far, and Lewis Hamilton nearly dropped out in Q2, so the Ferrari not looking amazing at this moment in time. And just looking at that replay of Lando Norris once again through turn 1 and turn 2, makes his way down towards turn 4, gets as close to the wall as possible, but I think just gets on the accelerator a little bit too early. Does Lando Norris, gets right on the curb. You can see the sparks fly at the rear end of the McLaren. And then as soon as he starts to correct towards, then gets a bite as the tires then grip the track once again, has to correct and correct once more and just can't do it quick enough to catch the car before it hits the wall. Oh, Oscar Piastri. Just having a little look now that the red flag might have actually dropped before Piastri got over the line. Interesting. Is Piastri actually going to get that lap time deleted? I have to wait and see. Because the red flag did drop right as Oscar was coming down the pit straight. It was very, very tight if he did manage to cross the line in time. I'm assuming he did, considering the timing sheets are saying that was the case. But maybe they'll have a little look at that, and possibly if Oscar Piastri's lap time also is deleted, I mean, it doesn't make too much of a difference, to be honest, because everybody is going to have to go out, and Oscar Piastri is certainly going to go out again. But it does just mean that there's a little bit more pressure on Oscar Piastri to put another lap time in. The whole point of going out twice in this qualifying session is to get that banker lap, you know? You're always assuming that you're going to go quickest right at the end of qualifying, but you want to get a lap in just in case something does go wrong, or just in case there's a red flag like we have seen. Although this red flag with 8.5 minutes left on the clock, still more than enough time for everybody to get another couple of laps in. But this is why you need that buffer lap almost. Antonelli podium incoming. Every time Lando fails, you're happier. That seems a little bit harsh. I do feel bad for Lando. Just hasn't quite been the start of the year that he was probably expecting it to be, or hoping for it to be. I know he won in Australia, but was never fully happy with the car, and then had to watch his teammate now overtake him with the number of wins this season. Oscar with 2 wins, China, and last time out in Bahrain, a solid win last time out in Bahrain. Had to watch his championship rival from last year, Max Verstappen, also take victory in Japan. He's been on the podium, though, as Lando Norris. It's not like he's been completely out of it, and he's still leading the Drivers' Championship, at least for now. Oscar Piastri, so close to that inside wall. Just seeing a replay of his lap time. Whether or not that will stay. It does feel like it's going to stay, though. They've had a little look at it a couple of times. Norris is a good driver. Piastri is a better driver than him. It's one of those ones, isn't it? It could easily switch. It's too early in the season to say definitively which of the 2 McLaren drivers is going to have the better overall season, I feel. And it's just Lando Norris does have these ricks in him, doesn't he? He does have... It's usually qualifying, actually. Lando Norris is pretty solid in the races. Like, generally speaking, Lando Norris doesn't really make too many mistakes when it comes to like racecraft. I know he made a mistake last time out at the grid slot, but I don't mean that kind of mistake. I mean the kind of racing mistakes rather than being a slightly over your grid box. Lando Norris doesn't really make mistakes in the races. His qualifying's where maybe he's just in his head a little bit too much. You know, qualifying is all about flow. Qualifying is all about getting yourself right into that rhythm and making sure that he is ready. And maybe Lando Norris is too in his own head about it. And here we go then. Right, track clear, green flag. Let's see what we can do. Russell, better than Piastri, better than Antonelli, better than Verstappen. Sorry. Excuse me. What's my opinion, though? Sure, we can't say definitely. That's the fun part. I did a whole video on it, actually. I'm Kev. on Tuesday this week, where I just kind of discussed the to's and fro's of it. I do feel like the momentum is with Oscar Piastri, and I think the thing is, Piastri is only in his third season. It just feels like the ceiling for Piastri is that much higher than Lando Norris. It feels like this season is now or never for Lando Norris. If Lando Norris doesn't win the championship this year, it won't happen. Whereas if Piastri doesn't win the championship this year, I can still see him improving, still see him carrying on, and still see him, being in that mix for the championship later on in his career, whether that's with McLaren or with someone else. We never know. Might end up moving to a different team and being the championship title fighting driver there. So it just feels like Piastri is more of a sort of talent than Lando Norris. It's hard to explain, isn't it? When it comes to sport, and you just have a feeling and a vibe and a kind of an intangible understanding that you just like, that driver has that something special, just has a little bit of a sparkle about him, does Oscar Piastri. In a similar vein to, when Max Verstappen came into the sport, in a similar vein to, you get these talents. They come in, and yes, they go through the same rigmarole as a lot of the rookies, but there's just those flashes of brilliance. You look at Oscar Piastri getting that sprint race win in Qatar. And I know there were a few things that had to fall in his favor, and it was overshadowed a little bit by the fact that Max Verstappen won the championship that weekend in 2023. But it was just that little like, oh, okay, that's something a little bit special from Oscar Piastri in your rookie season. Getting that sprint victory in a season where Red Bull was so dominant, in a season where Max Verstappen was so quick, is just like, okay. Then last year, the middle portion of the year where Piastri was kind of stepping up to the plate, had that really good stint. I'm thinking sort of, what was it? It was in and around kind of Monza, Azerbaijan. There's kind of a stint in that middle of the year where Piastri just looked, untouchable, and was the highest scoring driver for those sort of 6, 7, 8 races. If he can do that over the course of a season, and that's the next step, isn't it? That's the thing that you have to then say. It's all well and good being brilliant in 4 races, then in 10 races. Can you be brilliant in 24 races? Because to beat someone like Max Verstappen, you have to be good in every single Grand Prix. You have to win, or you don't have to win. You have to be dominant and show your ability in every single Grand Prix. And I think that's the thing that Piastri just needs to do this season. So far, Australia, outside of that, so far he's done everything that you could really ask for him. Max Verstappen, though, looking very handy indeed. Let's get back to the racing times, and Max Verstappen does go quicker than Oscar Piastri by 1,000th of a second. He has pole position by 1 millisecond, does Max Verstappen right now. Carlos Sainz came across the line with only a 129.1. So Max Verstappen, I mean, a millisecond is a millisecond. And Max has put that millisecond on the board. Game on indeed from Max Verstappen there. Stunning stuff. George Russell and Antonelli just coming around as well. Yuki Tsunoda is out on track. Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton are just making their way out of the end of the pits as well. Just under 4 minutes left on the clock. Verstappen perilously close to the wall. But that's where that millisecond was made, wasn't it? You have to be so tight to the barriers. And Verstappen was indeed just that. Verstappen now also sprinting around on this in lap. And very low grip in turn 1. And they need to prepare the tyres better, because Verstappen saying the tyres just weren't ready, or, well, GP confirming that those tyres just weren't quite in the mix to where they'd want them to be. And Verstappen has just found the rear end of Carlos Sainz as he's coming into the pits. Looking at George Russell coming around the final couple of laps. Going to be a full racing pit stop for Verstappen, it feels like. Little check of the front wing, and Max Verstappen. Yeah, it was a bit of a slow pit stop, really, in terms of sort of racing times, but Max Verstappen out ahead of Carlos Sainz. So Carlos Sainz is coming out behind him. Antonelli just coming across the start-finish line. Russell also on a fast lap ahead of his teammate. Yuki Tsunoda's just come across the start-finish line as well. So everybody ramping their way up to their final and, well, only flying lap of the session. Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton just coming down towards turn 27 now. So is Pierre Gasly. Oscar Piastri, the man who have an eye on now that it seems to be a two-way battle. And although I say that, never count out George Russell. He's gone absolutely ridiculously quick through the first sector as George Russell. He's found a 10th.5 on Max Verstappen's time. Wow. Max Verstappen is also getting out there. Oh my goodness me, this is going to come right down to the wire. Oscar Piastri is just coming around the final corner and starting his final flying lap time. George Russell actually goes a little bit slower than he did previously through the middle sector, but it's improved once again anyway. Still got time in hand after that sublime first sector. Let's see what Piastri can do behind him, because Russell and Antonelli are just coming across the start-finish line. Russell is going to go to the top of the timesheets, and it's by a 10th.5 from Max Verstappen. And I know I said it, and I don't know if I believed it, but now I surely do. George Russell goes to the top of the timing sheets for the Mercedes team. Oscar Piastri goes quickest of anybody through the first sector, though. And it's not by a lot. It's 0.5 of a second that Piastri has over Russell through that first part of the lap. This is going to be tight, ladies and gentlemen. Max Verstappen has also just started his flying lap. Here comes Charles Leclerc to only go 4th fastest for Ferrari. Lewis Hamilton is coming around the final sector as well. Oscar Piastri has lost a 10th of a second through the middle part of the lap, and Verstappen has found another 10th in the first sector. So it looks like Piastri might have to settle for P3. Russell and Verstappen are flying inside of the Mercedes and Red Bull cars. But here comes Piastri. It's not over yet. He's got one more sector to improve. He comes across the line as Piastri. It goes to the top by a 10th. Piastri at 127.3. He will be ahead of George Russell, but will he be ahead of Max Verstappen? Verstappen has 0.5 of a second on Piastri for now. It is going to be the last roll of the dice as Verstappen comes through this final sector. We've seen him touch the wall through turn 27 before in 2021, but it looks planted this time around. He's going to do it. Is he going to take pole position? Yes, Max Verstappen by 100th of a second. Goodness me. 100th of a second is the difference. Verstappen takes pole position in Saudi Arabia, and Piastri has to settle for second place. George Russell can also take a bow in amongst that. A great lap to put him in and amongst the talking point, but just wasn't enough to keep Verstappen and Piastri at bay. The Red Bull of Verstappen onto the top spot once again. Piastri slots into second. George Russell then in third place, just behind on the second row of the grid. And Charles Leclerc is going to start beside George Russell, but was not in the same league, really. 2.5 tenths adrift of the Mercedes car. Kimi Antonelli is going to be on the third row of the grid with Carlos Sainz beside him. Carlos Sainz can be very, very pleased with that indeed. The Williams car has looked great this weekend. And Carlos Sainz was P5 in both of the first free practice sessions on Friday. He now takes P6 for the race tomorrow. Lewis Hamilton will start in 7th place. Yuki Tsunoda in 8th. And Pierre Gasly will start inside of the points in 9th. Depending on the damage to the car, and hopefully they'll be able to put Norris's car back together again without him having to take any kind of grid penalty or start from the pit lane or anything like that. Should be the case, but for now, Lando Norris is going to start in 10th place after that crash, which caused the red flag in Saudi Arabia in the final qualifying session here. Behind that, just to remind you, Albon, Lawson, Alonso, Hadjar, and Behrman dropped out in Q2, so they will start 11th through 15th. And then Lance Stroll, Jack Doohan, Nico Hulkenberg, Esteban Ocon, and Gabriel Bortoleto were the 5 drivers to drop out in Q1. They will be starting from 16th down to 20th place. Whew. My goodness me, what a session that was. Thank you guys so much for joining me. Massively appreciate it. Just seeing that lap from Max Verstappen, how does he do it? When he is on form, he is sublime, is Max Verstappen. The way that he is able to just find the lap time just in time to get it on pole position, his 42nd pole position in the sport. I just don't know how he does it. The talent of Max Verstappen is unreal. Oscar Piastri gives him congratulations for getting that pole position. Piastri, though, 100th of a second in it. Very tight indeed. The Australian not quite able to get his 3rd pole position in the sport this time around, but it feels like that 3rd pole position will come at some point in the season, doesn't it? George Russell 3rd, and on those podium slots that you get to be in. The interview's just coming up, but be interesting to see what Lando Norris says post-qualifying. We haven't heard anything from the Briton during this time. Didn't get his post-qualifying interview as of yet, but it'll be interesting to see what he says. I'm going to leave you there, though. Thank you guys so much for watching. Massively appreciate it. Thank you, Sally, once again for the gifted memberships. That is insane. Thank you so much for all of the support in the first 5 races of the season. The 5th race coming at us fast and furiously tomorrow here in Saudi Arabia. As you leave, if you could hit the like button, maybe subscribe to the channel, or if you fancy kind of sticking with the channel, click one of the videos linked in the description below. The top one, I talk about this battle between Piastri and Norris and how it feels like the momentum is falling towards the Australian driver. Is this just another thing that has fallen his way and another thing that will cost Lando Norris in the long run? You'll have to click that link. Let me know what you think in the comments down below in that video as well. And I will see you tomorrow for some more live coverage of the race. Goodness me.